Good afternoon. This is Dr. Bill White again with the American Orthodontic Society, and I want to talk about something here that many of you may know, but a lot of you don't, and I didn't know all of this for some time myself. There are forces on the teeth that are not understood or not even they've ignored by people who are doing orthodontics. Some of them for years do this and don't realize that these forces are there. And I want to cover a few of them this afternoon and let you know about them. I drew some teeth off a few years ago and wrote an article about this, that in this particular setup, we've got the teeth in a class 2 relation right here. You see, we've got the bicuspid coming up in this area. And you put a headgear on somebody, you tie something up here, and you put a headgear that comes around and is putting force on these teeth going back in that direction. And people will come down with a TMJ problem often, or not often, but from time to time, by just pushing back on the upper anterior teeth. Now, when I had first been in practice for just a few years, I had this beautiful young lady who was class 2. Her teeth met like these do up here. And I had put her in a headgear and was pushing back on those upper teeth to correct the class 2 problem. I thought, well, get this back. To get it to class 2, you got to put this point down in this groove right here so that it would come up like such. And it had a long way to go, and I was working on that, and this young lady came down with a temporomandibular joint problem, and I could not figure out what on earth I had done that caused this. She didn't have it when we started, and she had it just popped up, a clear blue sky, nothing that would indicate that she was going to have it, but she started having it. And I racked my brain trying to figure out what was causing this problem. I knew that if you put force on the lower jaw back here, that where you've got a fossa in here and you have the condyle sitting up in here somewhere, and if you put distal pressure on the condyle, it causes it to press into this retrodiscal tissue, and it irritates that or gets it inflamed. Then they'll have TMJ problems. Now, a lot of people can get away and never have that. In other words, the jaw's coming like this over here. And so I knew that if it was pushing this could cause a problem. But I'm pushing on the top teeth only. We got a headgear there. You can pull from the occipital bone, or you can come from the neck, or wherever you want to come to. You put pressure on it, and you have a TMJ problem. I went to, there's one guy running around the country, he and his friend, and they were teaching what to do with TMJ problem. And I went to 3 of his lectures. The first one, I realized everybody he showed almost had been in orthodontics, and he did not realize that this could happen, see. And so he was blaming orthodontics on for having TMJ problem. And somebody else was a national speaker was running around saying headgears cause TMJ problems. Well, everybody wanted to get out of the headgears anyway. They said, well, I'll quit using them. A headgear is an excellent force to use in the mouth, and you can use them on as long as people live. So, but anyway, let's get back to the subject here. We had this young lady coming in, and she was wearing a headgear, and we were trying to correct the class 2, and she was having pain. I sent her to Dr. Bill Bell over in Dallas, an old surgeon who had written 3 books on the temporomandibular joint and knew more about it than anybody I knew of. And I sent this young lady in for him to check. And he wrote me a nice letter and said, "Bill, I see nothing that you're doing wrong that would cause this." And so I just said, well, the heck with it. We'll just put up with this pain. And then after a very short time, looked like about a month or 2 more, and the pain went away. And I wondered, what in the world happened? What made the pain go away? And all was clear blue sky. Why did it start in the first place? And so I got to thinking about that. Now, if you put the teeth together and you have interdigitation like this, and you're in full class 2 relationship on a young person especially, where they have quite a bit of angle to their teeth, a depth, you know, and you've got a tooth going up into this deal like this, and that person bites together, and you're trying to move one of these over the other one, you run into a problem where they're met in this area right there. Now, I've drawn this in here. When you try to shove this back, I don't care what you use to do it with. You can be coming in with class 2 elastics and create a TMJ problem. People say, well, occlusion, does that cause TMJ? Yes. Anything that shoves the jaw back will cause, or can cause, TMJ in some people. Other people have enough distance there, enough resistance, and you can't make them hurt. They don't hurt. The others, you just kind of touch them and they'll tend to hurt. So anyway, let's get back here. Now, I didn't come to this conclusion till this girl stopped, and I got to thinking, what did happen in here? All right, we pushed on this, and it was hitting hard right on this angle right here. These were hitting hard, and that pressure on the upper jaw, moving it back, I don't care what you moved it back with, it hit when she was chewing, and it gave a lesser pressure, but it was enough pressure to push the condyle back into the retrodiscal tissue and irritated it, and she came down with a small amount of temporomandibular joint problem, and I just kept on going, and then all of a sudden it was over. She had no problem at all. So what had happened in there, as you push this, and the lower jaw goes back and back for a ways, and then you can't get it to go, the bottom one won't go any further back, and these points come out like this. Now when they get up there, everybody's had people you put in class 2 correction, and it went for months without getting there, and then all of a sudden they come in one day, and now they're in class 1. What's happened? You pushed them over the points right here. When you got over the point, then when they bent down, move the jaw forward instead of backward, and your joint problem goes away. And that's what's happening in that particular case with that young lady. And so I knew that that was it. There are other forces in here. Here is your ear, and here's this pad we call the disc right here. And when they open their mouth, it stretches this part out, and it wrinkles this part up down here and tightens this on over here. Then when you close, the condyle goes back up in that direction. Let me see if we can do that. And now the condyle is back in here. But in this particular case, it went back behind the disc, and it's occluding on the ligament that holds the disc in place. And so now when this person opens their mouth, this disc doesn't pop on there real quick. You'll have somebody, you touch them back here in the ear, and they'll open a little bit, and then all of a sudden they go, and then they can open the rest of the way. Now sometimes the disc is off on one jaw, and that one won't open. They'll close until that pops and comes back on. And if you off on both sides, then they'll just make a bigger pop and jump back up on. You can feel the disc. And where it goes back in here, actually there's a space up in here where the tissue, the retrodiscal tissue stays, and it presses on that and squeezes the synovial fluid into the upper jaw space and the lower jaw space in there. That's a little different problem from what we were talking about. Now here's a disc that's in place, and when the person opens their mouth, when they go to open this, the disc pops over here. And now if they continue opening, they'll get down here a ways, and it'll pop, and the thing jumps back on. All right, this is what I wanted to get to right here. Now we have pushed this back, and it got edge to edge, or point to point right here. And now when the person bites together, instead of it moving the jaw back, it moves the jaw forward. And now you're out of problem. And that's why some of your class 2 cases go along for months, and if they are really wearing the pressure, the headgear or elastics or whatever you're using to correct class 2, when the point gets up on top, and now they just shift the jaw forward, and they'll come in and they'll be class 1. They may be a kind of a false class 1 because they'll bite on this incline and it'll shove the jaw further than it really wants to go out here, so it may be a false class 1. But we ought to be aware of these forces that are on the teeth. And a lot of people do not understand that biting the teeth together. Now, when you get old and everything's flat, that doesn't happen. Now, if you're somebody wanting to correct a class 2 problem that a child has, you can go back to that person and just put a small layer of acrylic on the occlusal surface of the lower teeth back here. So now when these points come down, they hit this and they slide easy. I had a patient, well, it wasn't my patient, it was a patient of a friend of mine, and he was been working on her for a long time and couldn't get the class 2 problem done, and he just figured she wasn't wearing the elastics and stuff that he was giving her to wear, and she said she did, and they got kind of a little bit irritated with each other, and she came over for me to look at her, and I looked at her, and that's what was wrong. If he had put just a little bit of acrylic in the occlusal surface to got rid of this, and just take the whole force that's going here works against these teeth and not against this down here, they won't have this problem. So if you're trying to correct a class 2 problem with somebody and it just won't hardly go over the hump, try putting a little thin layer of just plain lab acrylic, or you can paint it on there and cure it, let them touch together and then just grind everything off except the points where they touch this acrylic, and that jaw will slip over that easy. And now all the force that you're putting on this, it goes against these upper teeth, and they will move over there much faster than somebody trying to climb the hill right here and causing this to go back and give them problem with the joints and a whole lot of stuff like that. So this is something you need to put down in your head, that the teeth themselves chewing together on young people with lots of cusp length to their teeth. Now an older person that's worn off and they're flat, this won't happen. But a young person, it can drive the bottom jaw back as you drive the upper jaw back to correct the class 2, and the same thing when we use it in reverse too. Well, do that. Well, I hope that helps you in diagnosing and treating your patient. And then also, let me go through and see if I've got anything else I wanted to bring out. Well, here is the acrylic. Now we just painted this acrylic on the teeth, hardened it, and if you have an indentation, just take everything away except the point where this touches. And this will touch, and then it'll slide over this so much easier that if you closed it down here, it would have to climb the hill to get there. And climbing the hill, it made this go back, and then people that are sitting on the edge could have a temporomandibular joint. And I'll guarantee you that half the people straightening teeth don't know that fact right there. And so they come up, this one guy said, headgear causes TMJ problem. Headgear wouldn't do anything but moving this back. They were biting in here, and the occlusion drove these teeth back, and they had a problem. And that's what the problem was. Whatever you push the teeth back with, it would do the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's elastics or whatever. If you push them back and they're biting down in there, the occlusion will shove the lower jaw backward, and if you're on a jaw joint that's just sitting on the edge, it can cause you a problem. And there was a national speaker, I've heard him telling about headgear causing TMJ problem, and that is not true. The headgear is just a force that shoves the maxilla back. Now, you've got a case where when I shove the maxilla back, it's going to take the mandible back some. So in a sense, maybe the headgear shoved the maxilla back, and that's what caused the problem. It wasn't the force there. So if the guy had a thought about just coating the bottom teeth here so this would slide over that easily, correcting your class 2 is twice as easy if you don't have this interference like that. Try it if you haven't tried it that way. Now there's one other force that people have that I wondered for years what caused this. But a lot of people's jaws would be kind of mashed in up here around the bicuspids. The cuspids tend to stand out there. Then if you look at, let's see, I'll just go here. If you look at their arch, it comes over kind of normal on the cuspid, and then it'll cut in a little bit, and then go back like that. It'll have a shape like this. The molars can withstand the cheek pressure, and the cuspids can, and the centrals are up against the lower teeth. They don't show it very much, but you'll see it show up in the bicuspid area. And I wondered what caused it. I could not do any of my muscles any way I wanted to, and I couldn't make these cheek muscles push in on this tissue right here. Well, one night I woke up and I wasn't quite awake, but I had a real good seal on my lips. And if you put your lips together and swallow about 2 or 3 times and keep that vacuum, you can have a tremendous amount of vacuum, and the air pressure as you're pushing on that will push those bicuspids in. So we have to straighten that thing out, and then you have to put a retainer. If that person continues this vacuum pressure, then you have to wear something to support this to keep those teeth out. So when they sleep, they have to wear a retainer to hold that bite open like that. So that's a force that nobody really realizes can happen. And people think that if you move teeth, if you got the teeth over like this and you want to put them over on this side, that you're going to have to do surgery and section this off and move this section over there. If you just take a group of teeth and put pressure on the whole group, you'll move the bone, teeth, the alveolar bone that holds it up, the basal bone that supports that will modify itself to hold the load up to the best advantage it can over a period of time. But you can move teeth out like that and the bone goes with them. I had a 40-year-old man that was sucking on lozenges, and we didn't know what caused it. He said he came in, he had teeth that fit good, everything, and he was 40 years old. And he said, all of a sudden I was going when I was about 42, and my front teeth went out like this. And he said, what caused it? And I could not figure out what on earth. He didn't play an instrument, didn't smoke a cigar or a pipe, didn't prise on his teeth or do anything like that, but yet it went out that way. I left the room, I was getting behind, and he was talking to the assistant that was in there, and he said, he said, I've been putting these lozenges up in the roof of my mouth and putting my tongue up trying to hold them in place. And I put pressure on that to hold the lozenge there. And that was what was pushing this man's upper front teeth out. So here's a guy, 40-something years old, moves his teeth out. The teeth did not go out there without their bone. They carried the bone and all, just like a kid sucking their thumb. You don't see their teeth here with no bone. They have bone, and if they do it with the instrument or anything else. So this is another force that we ought to remind ourselves of. So let me erase that and go back. And now we were having problems with people finishing orthodontics, and then their case would start hurting and have TMJ problems after they finished the orthodontics. And I listened to a guy give lectures on that, and he kept blaming orthodontics was causing TMJ problems. And I knew that was not true. And I listened to it one time. I went home and figured out what the big guy was doing. The retention that is used, or at that time, nearly everybody sent their stuff in, and they put a clamp in here, and wiggle the wire in here, and then come around and hold this, and then come out, and then this is all buried in acrylic. And this would not let these teeth go forward without carrying the whole jaw teeth forward. This had a force holding the acrylic and everything in here. Would have to have wire coming around like that. Now, what happened in this particular case? Down on the bottom arch, we had a 3-to-3 down here, and this 3-to-3 wouldn't let these teeth go back in. It held them in place out here, and the upper jaw, the teeth were sitting something like that. And here's these bottom teeth coming up with a little overjet and overbite coming in like that. And they had a bar here that won't let these teeth go backward. And this up here had the material out in front that wouldn't let these go forward. But they did not put anything in there to keep the bottom teeth from biting together further. When a case that starts out and you have the upper teeth sitting in here and you've got the lower tooth coming up something like this, and now you open the bite, bring this down and this up till you come to something this way, and you finish that case, I can guarantee you, as you push this down and this up, the molars are going to erupt to some extent back here in the back, and you'll open the vertical dimension skeleton so heavy unless you use these blocks that we showed you, and then the skeletal is going to try to go back again. So you put that together here, but you don't put any type of bite plate on it. And then this tooth wants to crawl back up here, and this one wants to come down. It hits this inclined plane right here and shoves the lower jaw back, and we're having TMJ pain right after they took the braces off. And they went back to the orthodontist, and they said, well, the orthodontist doesn't have anything to do with it. You do something else. So they sent them, and this guy got in contact with a lot of these cases, and he was showing nothing but after orthodontics, showing TMJ problems with it, and all it was is the bite trying to go back like it was, and they didn't have anything in there to be able to stop it. So we have been putting something in there that keeps this from happening, and this is what. Now this is the retainer right in here, and this is what they'd have. This couldn't go back, this couldn't go forward, and when this bite closed up, this hit further up here, and this would shove the mandible back. And every one of those cases, if you took them and opened them back up and put a bite plate on it, they would not have this problem. Let me go here and I'll see if I can get that in there. Now there's a case, and we've got a wraparound retainer, nothing across here. This wire goes back in here. This is a 036 wire, and we bonded it together with an 028 wire that comes here and comes around like that, and it comes in, comes over here, and that's bonded or welded together to a wire that comes in like that. So you make it in 3 pieces. And then we put a bite plate in this part. So if they wear that retainer, their bite will never deepen. So let me go on from there. Alright, there's the bite plate on there. And whether you have anything here or not, it doesn't matter. This tooth is going to stay in that position if you've got a bite plate here to do that. Now, we have some people leave the retainer out, and they go, maybe that at one time this lower anterior tooth may have been closing up somewhere like that, you see, in here. And so they leave the retainer out, and the lower tooth erupts up some and comes up and hits this first. And when it hits this, the other teeth back in here can't come in contact. So if you do that, if you bite down right here and these don't touch, then the load is back here on the, where you have the fossa and the condyle pressing into the load is going to be back there, and that's where your TMJ problem comes from, see. Well, the thing that's wrong is that they let the bite deepen again. They left the retainer out for 2 or 3 months, and then put it in, and their teeth hurt. Their teeth weren't hurting so much as the jaws hurting because they were putting all the force right here and right here. And these teeth were not carrying the load that they should. So these are forces that you really need to understand if you're going to do orthodontics, so that this old bull that orthodontics has nothing to do with, in a way you can say that's true. But moving teeth around, the occlusion does. And if you do something like we call about here, and don't let it wear this, you put the retainer in, it'll start hurting, and they blame it on the retainer. There's nothing wrong with the retainer. They just, the bite is deepened, and now when they bite down, they're hitting right here, and they're hitting right on the head of the condyles, pushing into the same thing. If you bite your teeth, you bite on your teeth in the front of your mouth, the same thing happens. You know, when I bite back here, my back teeth are touching, and then I can bite hard. When I go up here and bite on my front teeth, that's why I'm cutting a string or something with your front teeth hurts bad, because now the force is back here. If I'm here, the force is here, and it can stand it there. But if you bite out here, you got force on the 2 jaw joints and the teeth, and that's it. And that's why you can't bite hard with your front teeth unless it's just a dire emergency. Then you can bite hard. You go back here, when you bite down, your teeth touch and come in contact, so the load goes up through all this bone structure. But when you just try this, if you don't believe it, just try seeing how hard you can bite with your front teeth, and it'll put a load on your joints back in the back. So these forces that people doing orthodontics and doing dentistry, just plain old dentistry, ought to know that those forces can force the jaw backward, and they can force you to put pressure on the jaw joint back in here, and it shouldn't take that. So I'm going to sign off tonight, and I hope to goodness somebody will sit down with this and think it through. And that's the way it is. And that's what's going to happen if you do certain things. And I've seen, I don't know how many people after their orthodontic work come down with TMJ problem, go back to the orthodontist, and the orthodontist doesn't have the foggiest idea of why their teeth are hurting. What's happened, the bite is deepened, and now they're hitting in the front and the jaw joint here. So whatever this means to you and wherever you are, I appreciate your watching. We've got a lot of people watching these things. I don't intend to lead any of you in a wrong direction. You know, I hope that what I'm saying to you is something that I have tried and proven over the years, and it has worked, and I'm just passing it on to you. So thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join our group and subscribe to our channel. We'd like to have you, and I'm going to say good night. I don't believe there's any other, that was the last picture in there. So we'll hope to see you back again for some other orthodontic problems that are problems with actually life, and things that hurt and mess your teeth up, they mess you up too. So some of these people have so much pain with their jaw joints and things that they really cannot do their work properly. I've had so many people that were taking so many painkillers and medication, And even the physicians did not know what was wrong with many of them. So it's just something we are gradually coming around to understanding, and I hope that you'll study these videos and understand these forces that exert on the teeth and cause us problems a lot of times needlessly. So I'll say goodbye and I'll close out. Thank you now, and join us again.